Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Footy Travellers podcast.
Well, welcome everyone to the Footy Travelers podcast. I am Colin, and as usual, I am joined by my co-host, Mike.
I'm here.
But he's right here.
I'm right here.
We're in the same physical space. What do you know? We're both in Denver. Mike's visiting for a little while. I'm usually talking to you this way, but
yeah, it's weird to have to look at me to my side.
Let me turn and ask you, how you been? How you doing since our last episode?
I've been living that Rocky Mountain life.
You have.
It's been pretty great.
Traveling around and hitting up West Coast places like Oregon and California and really getting a taste of Rocky Mountain or Mountain West Coast culture.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Different time zones, just
thinking about
the vibe.
Thinking about staying long-term here?
We'll see. I mean, you got to tease it out. Can't give everyone everything.
We will see. Well, not only am I joined by Mike, but today we are both joined by fellow footy traveler Matthew Eide, creator of Faraway Football, where he explores the world's greatest sport in, as the name obviously implies, some of the world's most faraway places. But before we bring on Matthew, Mike, I want to hear your thoughts on our upcoming adventure to maybe not so far away, England and Wales. We're going to go at the end of November. It's coming up. Are you getting excited or?
Yeah. I mean, you probably need to put me on maybe a stopwatch here because the excitement will continue on, but I'll try to be brief. First off, I'm very excited to see our U.S. women's national team versus the Lionesses. We've got the 4-time Women's World Cup winners versus the last Women's Women's World Cup finalists. The clock's ticking.
Honestly, I didn't even start it. So you know Perfect. What? You can just start over. Let's do that. All right. Are we ready? On the clock? Go.
The U.S. women's national team is playing the Lionesses. Right. And you have the 4-time Women's World Cup winners in the U.S. Yeah. Woohoo. Versus the last Women's World Cup finalists. Yeah. And the beauty of this is that they are playing at Wembley Stadium.
Home of football?
Home of football, as they say.
Okay.
And, just a very famous venue. But additionally, we've got a jam-packed agenda. We are going to potentially be attending a Premier League match. Potentially Chelsea, Chelsea.
Oh.
Potentially Spurs.
You own the team.
I own them, yes. My name's Todd Boley.
Big Blues guy here. Big Blues guy.
We have to give the option that we could potentially or have folks join and watch a Spurs match at Tottenham Stadium, but no one really wants to do that, I don't think.
Could do.
But then additionally, we've got some plans to check out Ted Lasso filming site for a nice Sunday roast. It's a dinner following the Thanksgiving holiday, so maybe a nice communal roast at the Prince's Head, which is what the bar is called.
The real life name, Prince's Head.
Name, yes.
I think it might be like Crown and Anchor or something in the show.
Show, yeah. Additionally,
there's more.
We are going to Wrexham, and we are going to support the most famous American owned. Not American. They are not an American club. They are a Welsh club.
American and Canadian owned. Yeah. North American owned. Speaking of TV shows.
And we're just going to do kind of a welcome to Wrexham tour of our own. Right. And they'll be playing Barnsley at the race course. So that's going to be pretty fun. And then we get a chance to take in things that most people only see on television. So like going to the turf and meeting Wayne, who owns the turf, and getting a really proper tour. We hope. Right. And maybe Rob and Ryan will be there. I don't know. That would be pretty awesome.
Rob and Ryan, if you're listening or watching, which probably in all your free time you do from time to time.
Yeah, I'm sure.
We'll see you soon.
But this is a big thanks to our fellow footy traveler, 2-time Footy Travelers podcast guest, Mark Eagleman Cranston. Yep. Who has already been a few times, and he is
to Wrexham.
To Wrexham. Yep. And he is kind of going to be our de facto tour guide.
Yeah.
But wait, there is still more, as the infomercial say.
Yes.
We happen to be kind of close to Manchester.
Right.
And
while we're in Wrexham.
Yeah. And there's some midweek matches happening. One particularly being City versus Forest.
I mean,
so if there's a game
when in Rome,
right? So, if there was a club to see in Manchester, in my opinion,
which there is,
there's two.
There might actually be a couple
top tier. I would very much rather see City than United.
Ooh.
Just putting it out there. So
sorry, Dev.
Yeah. So that is the very long list. You fortunately stopped looking at your watch. No, you don't need to. It's fine.
3:23. Not bad.
It's not bad.
It's a lot happening in the trip. We're going to be jam-packed in a matter of 5 days. So I think 3 minutes is a good amount of time to let everyone know what to look forward to if you're going to join us. So if you fancy yourselves as fellow footy travelers,
FFTs,
and you want to join in on all the footy travel fun we'll be having, but you missed signing up for this one, I have some good news. If you're planning to be in London anyway for the Thanksgiving holiday, or you don't mind last minute travel, you could get on the wait list at footytravelers.com. I personally have a feeling, Mike, that if we don't hear from a few people who signed up on the preliminary list, there might be some spots opening up. So, no large women have belted out any musical performances yet. No one has sung, so it's not too late. At the very least, get on the wait list and be one of the first ones to hear about our next trip announcement before anyone on social media does. All right. What do you say we get to our podcast guest?
That'd be wise.
Yeah.
We don't want to keep them waiting.
So again, everyone, we are joined by Matthew Eide, creator of Faraway Football. Matthew, welcome to the Footy Travelers podcast.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here. This is so much fun.
Yeah. Thank you for dealing with our new dynamic here.
Right.
In the same space, on the same microphone, leaning.
Hey,
in
football
and
brings
out.
us all closer,
Exactly. We are literally very close.
Yeah.
Footy traveling, that can bring you close to faraway places. And we're going to talk about faraway football as we hear some of your travel stories. But before we do that, random question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in Buenos Aires. Am I a Boca or a River Plate fan? And explain your laughter as you answer that question.
Well, that is a text I got from my mother-in-law. Bless her heart. She's the greatest. Her name's Myra. She is my mother-in-law of the game. I always say on my blog. Whenever she travels, she I can't believe that's the question.
That's what I led with. I brought mothers-in-law up real quick and right up front. It is something I can relate to. I think we have in common. My mother-in-law knows who to go to for footy and travel advice when it comes to footy traveling. So
she's going to be so tickled listening to this episode.
Myra, it's a joy to have you listening.
I love you. No, she's wonderful, and she has really embraced me as her son-in-law and embraced my love of football.
Yes.
When I was first sort of dating her daughter, and then as we got engaged and things, I was always wearing a shirt of a team from wherever, and she was like, "That's how I always know who's playing, by whatever shirt you're wearing. That there's a game happening."
You're the calendar.
Basically just like the billboard, and it just became this thing that whenever she was traveling, she would ask, she wanted to connect with people wherever she was. And she was like, "Oh, well, I'll just use football and I'll talk to them about football." And I was like, "That's it. That's perfect. But just let them tell their stories. Just ask them who they support. Keep it neutral, because football is a very explosive game, depending on where you are."
Good advice.
And and so I've whenever she travels, she was in Argentina and Chile, and she was in Egypt, and she's just been traveling around the world. And I'll just get a text from her and being like, "Oh, the African, the CAF final is on, like, I think I want to go watch it. And it's like, no, that's like, you're not going to go watch Zemalek and Al Ali. Like, please don't go to that. Like, just as a like random woman walking in, like, I love you, but please, like, don't just walk into that storm.
Maybe read about it in the paper tomorrow.
Please don't go to the Cairo Derby, please. Like, I would be so jealous if you did, but please don't do that.
But devil's advocate, how great of a footy travel story would that be?
Right.
Oh yeah. I mean, she has a way of just like getting into places, and she's very affable. She's amazing. I mean, I love her to death, and she could get into the locker rooms of either one of those clubs and just like, oh, your name is what? Okay, great. And like, just meet the head coach and like, whatever. Like, it would be amazing. But
as you said, very, very affable.
That's awesome.
Probably not too far off from my own mother-in-law. That would, since we're shouting them out, Kathy Holiday. Hope you're listening. Love you.
Her greatest claim to fame, and she always loves flaunting that. There's a photo she has in front of a photograph of Lionel Messi in his Argentina jersey. It's a statue of Lionel Messi, but she's always telling people, "Oh, I met Lionel Messi," and everyone's like, "What?" And she pulls this photo out, and she's like, "Do you know that I met Lionel Messi?" And she's like, "It's great." It's
a mom making dad jokes.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, she sounds like a proper footy traveler in my mind. You don't have to go to the match to be immersed in the football culture, Yeah. She's doing her research. She's being mindful. I think the being neutral is a very savvy piece of advice that we try to give people as well. If you're going into some maybe, hotter territorial places that might be
right. Yeah.
Red, blue, yellow jerseys can be,
right.
They can say something. They can make a declaration.
They sure can.
Neutrals, nudes. What would you call them? Muted colors.
Muted. Yeah. Nudes.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of jerseys, speaking of jerseys and shirts, if those that are not seeing us on video, we are wearing some soccer jerseys, as we often do, and Matthew is as well. And we have a very similar love for this beautiful brand, Icarus FC. Icarus being the company that makes not only these beautiful kits.
Footy Travelers.
Yeah, beautiful.
FootyTravelers.com.
Got to shout it out. But also other highly custom and bespoke kits for footy teams around the world. Now, some of the reason for that is actually you. So tell us how you first discovered Icarus, and then maybe explain a bit about their role in your recent trip to the country of Bhutan.
Sure. So I live near Philadelphia. I live in Delaware. And everybody you can clip in the like Wayne's World clip right here. Like, I'm in Delaware.
Hi. I'm in Delaware.
Exactly. But I met Icarus, or I'm sort of connected with Icarus during the pandemic because I love what they do, love their historic kits, and I love sort of what they were doing. And they loved what I was doing with faraway football, just in terms of really connecting with teams in all these sort of faraway places. And, we just become fast friends because we're sort of just in proximity to each other. And I have been a sponsor of the Icarus Cup, and for their 2 years now, I think, which has been amazing. Icarus Cup is like an incredible display of football. And
5v5 or 7v7 tournament.
Yes, off the top of my head, I don't quite remember how many. I want to say 7v7, but it's wild. There's no offside. The games feel like they're every 15 minutes, and it's just like it's a sprint, and it's really just like a display of athleticism that I am not built for in any way. So I'm happy to be a sponsor that brings a cooler full of like Gatorades and salt tablets.
Right. Got to stay hydrated.
Right. And so we've just been sort of building this relationship. But recently they make this shirt for a team in Bhutan called Thimphu City FC. I don't know if you can see it.
For our YouTube viewers, you see the Thimphu City FC badge right there. Yeah.
Shout out those visual learners. And to celebrate their new season for 2024, their new season's kits, Timpu City and Icarus dropped this amazing contest that if you buy one of Timpu City's shirts, you'll be entered into a contest to win a 7-day trip to Bhutan to watch Timpu City play in person.
Buy a shirt, get a trip to Bhutan.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's my kind of contest.
Yeah. I mean, it was like holy buckets. So I bought 3 shirts.
Okay.
I bought the home, away, and third of 2023 of last year just because they're so great. And just sort of like crossed my fingers and spent the whole time that the contest was running just like gnawing my nails down to nubs, being like, oh my God, can you imagine? This would be the greatest thing. And I won. My number was drawn in a rather dramatic fashion by my friend Paul Watson via a live stream. He did his best Rod Stewart impression where he just like jammed his hand in. And
we were watching live as well. We were fellow participants.
You entered?
Oh yeah.
My mother-in-law Myra also entered.
Of course
the
she
contest.
did, Myra.
But she entered because she wanted to go to Bhutan to go bird watching. She's a huge bird watcher.
Oh wow!
And the owner of Timpu City, Hishi Sharing, owns a bird watching tourism company in Bhutan.
Wow!
And so it was just like if it wasn't going to be me, it should have been her, because she would have been like
awesome.
Again, super affable, football lovable mother-in-law, but also like bird watcher, and
wow,
just would have been great.
So
I
went to Bhutan on Icarus's dime, I believe.
Yes, they Icarus generously paid for my flights from Washington D.C. to Paro, Bhutan, with a little negotiation by me because I wanted to go to Kathmandu instead of Delhi.
Yeah,
and I thought, if I'm in the area, why not go to Kathmandu, right? So they covered, basically they covered the flights, they covered the visa fee, which was just a modest $40. But Bhutan has this rather unique add-on of the sustainable development fee, which is an additional $100 per night that you're in the country.
Oh wow!
That helps cover
per night.
Yeah.
Okay.
It used to be $200, and they're sort of trying to build back after COVID and bring in more tourists, so they cut it in half.
Okay.
And it doesn't cover anything like hotels, guide, driver, anything like that. It just is a straight up, basically an additional visa fee. But it goes to help cover healthcare and education costs in Bhutan. So it's not like, it can get expensive. A trip in Bhutan can get expensive really quick.
The more you stay, the more you pay.
Exactly.
Okay.
So yes, Icarus covered all that for me, which is amazing. And once I got in country, the owner of Timpu City, Hishi Sharing, got a shout out again.
What's up?
Covered everything else: hotels, cultural centers, any sort of like entrance fee kind of stuff.
Wow.
Just giving me rides and like having his friend sort of drive me around. Normally when you're in Bhutan, 99% of the people that are there you have to travel with a guide, and you have a guide and a driver, and that's sort of what it is.
That's still a requirement, I think.
Yeah, because I was looking to go there when living in Asia, and I had some friends that were doing the research for it, and it was when the visa fee or the daily visa tourism fee was higher than 100, and then they had said you have to have a guide with you as a requirement to.
It used to be.
Yeah,
it used to be a requirement.
Okay.
They have since, you can go by yourself if you want.
Okay.
But most people have some sort of, even if it's just like, we'll call it guide light, there's everybody is a guide in Bhutan. The tourism industry is like their number one export other than hydroelectric power.
Interesting.
So like you'll just see tour guides everywhere with little clumps of tourists and little like buses full of tourists. And when I was walking around and didn't have one, like an official guide, because she is a guide, because he has his tourism company.
She does all of everything in Bhutan.
Sounds like everything. Yeah.
Oh my God, that man, like, So his family is like the first family of Bhutan football. One of his sons is on the national team. His daughter is on the women's national team, and they're playing in the South Asia Football Federation Women's Championship right now. Shout out Pema.
Oh, wow.
I think they're playing Maldives tomorrow. Have to look. Yeah, she's the captain of the women's team. He owns Thimphu City, obviously, and he's just like got crazy connections everywhere.
Yeah.
When I had some visa issues, he would just like text the immigration head and be like, "Hey, what's going on with the website?" And then he'd be like, "Your visa should be fine." And be like, "Oh yeah, it is. Cool, great."
That sounds right.
That's a good person to know.
Bhutan in general is a very, very small country, and it only has a population of fewer than 800,000 people.
Yeah.
So it's comparable to the size of like Northern Virginia. Like it's like the lump on top of Virginia. It's not a very big country.
But beautiful.
Oh, it's gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. And they only opened to tourism in like 1974. So it is like untouched by most modern tourism stuff that you see in a lot of other places.
So if you have a few extra $100 laying around for a daily fee to a footy travel destination, Bhutan might be a good one to throw on your list.
Yeah, I think the average is like 3 days. A lot of people sort of do a 3-day sprint through Paro and Thimphu and sort of like see the big sites and then head on out. But I was lucky enough for 7.
So you were there for a match. So kind of tell us about the stadium. So Changlimithang Stadium and the match experience, and like you were there for how many days total?
7.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
8 technically, but I flew out like at 7:00 in the morning on the 8th.
Yeah. I definitely want to hear about the stadium because I've seen it from your pictures. I've seen it from Icarus's pictures. We follow Thimphu City FC on Instagram as well. I mean,
nice.
Describe it for those who have never seen it or are about to look it up themselves. Give them a little preview.
So it was originally built for the coronation of a king. We'll just start with that. So you can imagine it's a pretty ornate, or at least it has a special place. And it has since been expanded and sort of really just built out.
Yeah, built as a football stadium for the coronation, or as a venue
as like a ground, as a venue.
Wow. Okay.
And Bhutan being in the sort of foothills of the Himalayas, it's just like it's got a really cool background. It's kind of, I think it's at like 7,000 feet.
Wow.
So it's not like super high altitude. It's not Bolivia, but it's not like,
it's higher than Denver.
Yeah, it's higher than Denver.
But it is gorgeous, and the architecture is specifically Bhutanese. Like I've never seen a stadium quite like this. There's like really detailed paintings on everything. All the columns are painted. It has super ornate molding along the top of the roof, which has its own special shape, and everything is just like
sounds like a museum.
It's
like a capital museum.
It's beautiful. I mean, it is like the seating itself is super modest, and it's just your classic plastic seats on concrete. Okay. But then the outer portions of it, like the sort of higher up stuff, is all just this like really ornate woodwork.
Yeah. How many does it seat?
I think it seats like 15,000 people.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's got it's got some standard locker rooms and things like that. Like it's built for it is their national stadium, so it can handle like multiple matches in a day kind of situation. It's got like 4 locker rooms, I think.
Oh, wow. I got the sense from some of the things I've heard from you and others that it hosts multiple teams. Like it's not just Thimphu City FC that has it as its home ground.
Yeah, every team that plays in Thimphu claims it as their home team. So when Thimphu, for this match that I went to, it was Thimphu versus Transport United, which are both Thimphu-based teams.
Cool.
And it was technically a home match for Transport United. So the home team gets the ticket sales.
Yeah.
For the match. Yeah. So
was that the opening match for the season?
No. Close to the end of the season.
Close to the end. Okay.
It's actually a battle of pretty angsty positioning on the table. Thimphu City was second place and Transport United was third.
Okay.
And if Thimphu City won, they were basically assured second place. Like they were sort of locked in. The champion had already been crowned, Paro FC, just like perennial Bhutanese champions. I think they've won like 4 or 5 times in a row.
Ancestor City of Bhutan.
Sounds like
basically, yeah. They're very rich. From a Bhutanese standpoint, they are a very, very wealthy team. And so it was basically like, a race for second. And obviously there's prize money involved with your position on the table. And it was neck and neck, And the match itself, first half, pretty quiet. The crowd is kind of quiet. Halftime, Thimphu City were up 1-0 on a penalty. There was some on-field sort of animosity building, but it wasn't anything crazy. Mm-hmm. Second half, everything just sort of exploded. It was like Transport scored, so it was 1-1.
Yeah.
And almost immediately, Thimphu City fired back, and it was 2-1, and then 3-1, and 4-1, and 5-1 Thimphu City. Like, just like... Boom, boom, boom. And
so they're up. They're
up 5-1. They're up 5-1 in almost the 80th minute.
Wow.
And I was sitting with a bunch of Bhutanese Buddhist monks
as
for
you
the second
do.
half. Right. Actually Thimphu City's most rabid fans are Buddhist monks. And they're pretty vocal and rather, I don't want to use the word violent, but like aggressive, we'll say. Like
wow.
They are monk ultras.
This
That's the closest thing you'll get to Bhutanese real fan culture is like the monks are, they really give it to you.
This sounds like a form of irony I just have to take in.
That's incredible.
In person. Yeah.
They're football crazy. I mean, it was nuts. I hiked up 3 hours in the rain to their monastery like the day or two before just to talk to them about their support and just meet them. And had a really lovely lunch. It was delicious. And then we just sort of sat down to chat a little bit. And it was just like, you're just talking with somebody in a pub. Like they're just football crazy. And I mean, they love it. They love the sport, you know, and they also appreciate Thimphu City for a lot of other reasons because they're sort of a charitable football club.
Oh, okay.
So that really ties into their sort of ethos as monks.
Say more about that. The club being charitable.
Sure. So Hishi often jokes that the FC in Thimphu City FC doesn't stand for football club; it stands for charity. And he has a ton of different initiatives that he calls C for C or City for Community. And he has the Thimphu City Youth Academy. He built this futsal pitch right outside of his house. So you can just stand on his deck and look down, and it's just like swarm with kids doing U8, U10, U12 training.
Wow.
And it's just like they're like water. They're constantly just running in and out of this pitch.
Yeah.
He does support the monks. They donate $10 for every goal scored to Bhutan's Support the Monks program, which help with food and clothing and housing. And then he has a really big initiative called Save the Heron, which helps to support the white-bellied heron, which is a critically endangered species in Bhutan. Okay. About 60 of them left in the wild.
Wow.
And 27 of those 60 are in Bhutan. And so $20 for every goal scored goes to that initiative as well to support the white-bellied heron. And so the monks really appreciate how much he could just be hoarding this all for the football club.
Right.
And sort of pouring it into the club. Could be Paro, if only.
And win titles.
Yeah. I mean, who wants to win trophies when you can win the hearts and minds of your community, right?
Right.
I mean,
what is a football team for? Is it for the community or is it for titles? Yeah.
Right. And therein lies maybe the ethos of the footy traveler.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, these monks, were they thrilled with the 5-1 lead, I imagine? And how did their spirits end that day?
So we were all having a party in the stands, just going nuts. And there were some Transport fans that had a little drum that had been chanting for Transport the whole match and were doing their best. But once Thimphu started pulling away, they just got like bantered into the ground by the monks. And
this visual is amazing.
Like when it was 5-1, they'd be like, Transport, bye-bye Transport, bye-bye Transport, you know, and like Kinga, one of the monks, he's like, I wore my lucky shirt, and he pulls open his robes and he's got a Thimphu City polo underneath of it.
Oh, wow.
He's just like, we're on cloud nine. I mean, just having a blast. And Transport scored a sort of a consolation goal late in the game at like the 80th minute or so, 78th minute.
Okay.
And, you know, so I'm a Minnesota guy. I'm a Minnesota sports fan. When that happened, I was sort of like, uh-oh. You know, just because that's sort of like my Minnesota sportsness.
Did your spidey senses
It did. It started tingling.
Impending doom kind of thing.
It started tingling. But everybody else having a great time. Of course, I'm keeping a positive thing. I'm really having a good time as well, but also just sort of like, how much added time is there going to be? There's 8 minutes of added time.
Okay. See where this is going.
Which ended up being 11 minutes of added time.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
And in the stadium, they don't show the clock progressing.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't announce that it was going to be 11 minutes. So I was just sort of sitting there like, how much time has passed? And I'm in the group chat for people who are like following Thimphu City around the world, being like, how much time has passed? And I'm like, we don't know. The clock says 90 on the TV. Like, nobody knows. Long story short, Transport in added time score a goal every 3 minutes.
In order to reach a final score of...
It's full time. It's 5-5.
Oh, my gosh. That's brutal.
Thimphu City does not guarantee second place.
No. And to make matters worse, so it was sort of like, can we curse on this podcast? No, I don't want to. I don't want to.
Unless your mother-in-law doesn't want to hear it.
Myra, Kathy, earmuffs. We did put the explicit label on this episode in particular.
Oh, good. Preemptively.
Matthew, carry on.
I was just like, fuck, you know, like, just like,
as you do.
Yeah. But so I was there as like winner of the Thimphu City thing. I was far away football. I was like, I need to go like document. Like I've seen so many football documentaries where it's like in the locker room after a loss or something like that. And I was like, I want to catch the drama of like, you know, the team sort of yelling at each other and like, oh, that'll be good content kind of stuff. I walked into the locker room with my camera on and oh my God, the vibes were just off, like not good.
Not content, safe.
Not content.
Yeah.
Abort. And I just like closed up everything and just like, ugh. And a couple minutes later, come to find out that Thimphu City had been informed by the competition officials that they had broken a foreign player rule in that you're only allowed to field 4 foreign players in a match.
Okay.
And they had made a sub.
They can enter the field.
Yeah, they had made a sub in the 94th minute and added a 5th.
Wow.
And as a consequence, it was going to be logged as a 3-0 loss forfeit match.
No
way! To Transport United.
So worse. It gets worse. Yeah.
Like, it wasn't even like the draw. That sucks. Like, we can still fight back and like claim second. It was like the bottom fell out.
Yeah.
There's no coming back.
Oof.
And it ended up being that Transport eventually claimed second. The season just wrapped up recently.
Oh, wow.
Transport claimed second place and Thimphu claimed third. And it was just like the worst case scenario happened. And it was the worst feeling I've ever felt at a sporting event.
That brings to mind 2 things to me. First, you may have attended the most historical Thimphu City FC match ever. Not in a good way, but like that's going to be remembered, I would assume, for a long time. Like,
oh yeah,
total shit the bed, and not only that, but then the punishment and the forfeit. I'm just like, that sounds like, even though it was really heartbreaking, it's sort of like, well, you saw history being made. Essentially, that's insane.
Silver lining.
Silver lining, I'm trying to find it. Secondly, maybe it's less silver lining and more skepticism, but like, sounds a little bit shady, like that ruling. And I don't know, it feels, you've been to a lot of faraway places, and we all know that, you go to some small countries and there's some greased palms and some things. I don't know. I'm not trying to imply.
You go to big countries.
Yeah,
let's be honest.
Have that too. I'm not
greasy
trying to
palms and
imply,
politics go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Well, so the infraction happened, and it was admitted by Timbuktu City that it happened.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But it was also challenged, and this is sort of like inside baseball. So they challenged it because Transport earlier in the season had a bit of a wonky fifth player edition themselves, and like a weird restart, and the player came off, and so
they're flagged live, and then they were like, you can't do that, and they were able to like take them off.
Like the kick happened, and so technically the game started, but then the ref was like, nope, hold on, and then they restarted, and the sub was allowed to come off.
Wow.
So that's a challenge that's currently being
pending.
Presented to the Bhutan Football Federation.
And as you said, there's money on the line, so there's an incentive to maybe bring this to a finality.
Yeah. So, we're still waiting to hear what's going on with that, but it went in the books. Season's done, and we're sort of like looking forward to next season. Seeing what's going on. The irony of you sort of talking about like, you've seen history before the match was going on. Part of my duties as being the Icarus winner was getting some search signed by the team for other winners that had won like second or third place. They won a team signed kit. My pens exploded all over my shirt.
Real quick, will you do for the YouTube watchers?
It just exploded.
Not necessarily part of the design.
No.
Timbuktu City FC did not try to incorporate their own design with the women's U.S. women's national team sort of splotchy paint kit.
Right.
No, we're not going for splotchy paint. These are Druk dragons all over it. It's wonderful.
And it's a beautiful kit.
Oh, it's lovely, and it was so nice and clean. And I told Hishi about like, the paint exploded all over my shirt, and he was like, "Oh, well, now you have a story."
Right.
And you have a memory. And that was before the game had happened. So I was like, that made me feel better. You're right, Hishi. Yeah. And at the end of the match, I was like, it was an omen, wasn't it?
Oh, no. So talk about an incredible experience at the match and being in a beautiful stadium. But you're also in this incredible country that many people have never been to. And you talk about taking a hike to this monastery. But like, what other worthwhile out of ground cultural sites or experiences did you have while there?
Well, I mean, every day was a new opportunity. So because of the Save the Heron initiative, one of the big things I wanted to do was to visit the White-bellied Heron Conservation Center.
Cool.
Partly from my mother-in-law, because I want to see the rare bird. It's like one of the 50 rarest birds in the world. And
you wanted to gloat because you're like, well, I won. Yeah, I got to see some cool birds.
I've seen 5 white-bellied herons live. But I wanted to check it out because I wanted to see what the team is supporting. And this center has only been open for about 3 years. So it's a rather new initiative because their habitat, I mentioned hydroelectric power earlier, their habitat is being threatened by that hydroelectric power.
Okay.
So Hishi drove me down there in what normally is like a 4-hour drive, just sort of southeast of Thimphu. If you look at Google Maps, it's like 4 hours, 4.5 hours. The weather when I was there was unseasonably rainy. The monsoon season had ended, and normally like October is really, really nice in Bhutan.
Yeah.
It had been raining for kind of like 2.5 days straight of just really kind of heavy mountain rain. And the roads would just experience like the drive was full of landslides, rock slides, fog.
Mountain rain over a long period of time can be scary.
Yeah.
Canyons fill up, riverbeds start to flow heavy.
Yep. Yeah. And there are monkeys that affect. It's kind of like loose dirt, and so they up on the hill they'll be sort of scurrying around looking for food and just sort of being monkeys, and that'll sort of push everything else down. As much so Bhutan is covered in like 70% tree cover, but it's really shallow root systems. And if you've been to Georgia, the dirt kind of reminds me of like the red clay of Georgia.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of grip. And so when it gets really wet, it just slides off of itself, which also makes hiking very difficult if you're trying to hike up a mountain. But if the mountain road was a 2-lane road, basically cut out the side of a mountain the whole way down. And on the left side of me is just a drop off into this like swollen river, which was beautiful. I spent a long time just like looking down at the river because the river was full of these boulders that were just like the river was full of boulders that were the size of houses. And it's not even an exaggeration. They were just massive. And the country itself is just like awe-inspiring. But to get to this place, it was like a really harrowing experience to get there. And to see the birds in person, it's sort of just really touching of like, hello, like I've traveled far to come and see you. And they didn't really appreciate that. White-bellied herons do not like being disturbed.
Gotcha.
Anyway.
They were not expecting you.
They were not. I didn't pencil myself in with their secretary.
Of all the things and people that she is connected to, he did not leave a word with the herons to expect Matthew.
Right. But it's a really incredible initiative, and I don't know many football teams that are doing stuff like that are really so connected to nature. Yeah. My own MLS club, Minnesota United, I think does stuff with like loons,
the loons,
and the Department of Natural Resources, but it's not anything close to what this is.
Yeah.
Nice.
Because like I said earlier, is a birdman to his core. Like this is very like it's football and birds are what makes him, and if you remove either one of those, he would just stop being a person. Like his soul would just leave.
One of the things that you mentioned in terms of Minnesota United, their logo is a loon, but the Timpo City FC logo is not actually a loon, right?
It is not. No, it's an eagle.
Eagle, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Not a white heron.
Not a white heron. Not white-bellied heron. Yeah.
White-bellied heron. Although they do have a kit. They do have a white-bellied heron kit that says "Save the Heron" on it. It's black and it's got a little like sublimated white-bellied heron on it that some of the proceeds for that are going to go to the center as well when Icarus starts selling those.
Very cool.
Well, it sounds like you had an incredible journey to Bhutan for footy, for travel. You got to indulge in the sport we all love, see some sights, meet some cool people. I want to ask you about some other travel experiences you've had and the connections you've made through this beautiful game. But before we do that, you're mentioning the jersey. I wanted to wait to do this and remind everyone when the contest was, when you could buy the shirts and enter for the trip.
I think that was in April, right?
April, yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. Right here. And again, YouTube viewers, congratulations. You're going to be able to see this. Podcast listeners, you'll just have to listen to me describe this, but this is my package from
I know that package.
FC. You know that package very well.
See, but I think what I'm worried about, what Colin's about to do, is he's going to unwrap this, and my fear is that Matthew just explained that he ruined his Timpo City FC jersey, and now you're going to open up a fresh new one, I'm assuming, and sort of gloat that you have one.
You know what? That's not my intention.
Okay. Just want to make sure that that's not what you were trying to do.
And even if it were, we've already established that Matthew has the story I don't have. So
yeah, he's the winner. He is the winner.
So I love that you're wearing the away kit, Matthew, because I myself, and Mike, you also entered this contest.
I did.
And
I thought about buying all three because I am, in fact, a very big kit head, and I love all three of them. They are beautiful. But I was like, well, I'm not sure how popular this contest will be. I don't know how many contestants there'll be. And there is several closets filled with jerseys at my house that I feel like, okay, I would love this trip. And now I'm regretting it because you had the strategy. You bought all three and you got them more entries. And so you won.
No. Not a strategy. I just like the shirts.
Good answer. Mike, she's listening and he's like, okay, good answer.
If Mike did that, this would have been a completely different episode.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
But here I am. This is my fresh out.
Oh, yeah.
I'll bring the microphone. I shouldn't do that. Fresh out the box, fresh out the bag. Timpo City FC away kit.
It's gorgeous.
It's beautiful.
There we go, everybody.
Is it the cloud one? Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Cloud one.
Yeah.
Or the
I love that
blue
one
on
too.
the blue clouds on the white jersey.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Anyway,
Stunning.
now we have something else in common, Matthew.
Right.
Absolutely.
There it is.
The
Well,
clouds in Bhutan are gorgeous.
Yeah. I mean, you're up in them.
Yeah, definitely.
I want to ask you, let's switch locations as we wrap this up.
Okay.
Solomon Islands is an area that you have had contact with, we'll say, through football.
Mhm.
I think you were at one point asked to give words of encouragement to a women's team in the Solomon Islands, or you had a connection to the women's league in the Solomons.
As many people do. Just
As-
as a lot of people do.
As you do.
Yeah.
Or at least as Matthew does. Tell us that far away football story, I guess.
So that was a sort of pandemic project in the summer of 2020. The Solomon Islands announced that they were starting a women's league, and I was sort of like, all right, I can get in on this because I'm into that kind of stuff, and A, support women's football always.
Absolutely.
B, faraway football opportunity with the Solomon Islands, and C, I mean, why not, right? It's on Facebook at midnight, 1:00 in the morning. It's 2020. What else are we going to do with ourselves, right?
You had a newborn, or you had kids that were probably picking up anyway?
I did not have kids at that point.
Oh, okay.
No kids. I have 2 now. Life has changed significantly since I started following women's football in Solomon Islands.
And honestly, since the pandemic, so you're in good company.
But yeah, I sort of I wrote an article about I wrote a blog post on Faraway Football about the league starting up, and I sort of just picked a team because I was like, why not? And it was Naha FC, Naha Women's Football Club, and sent them the article and said, hey, I'd love to learn more about your club, because it had existed before since I think about the mid 80s in various iterations, both amateur and professional. And I was like, I want to learn more about the club. I want to really celebrate women's football in Solomon Islands. It's great because of just women's rights in the Solomon Islands in general. It's really important, and it's kind of a progressing thing, but that's a different podcast.
At least a different episode.
Yeah, different episode. And the owners, loved it. Diana and Lawrence, they're wonderful, beautiful people. And really everybody on the team was like, they just embraced me. I was like, I'm from Washington, D.C. I support you guys. I watch your matches on Facebook. And I just became one of the Naha family kind of overnight. And, I wanted to be a sponsor in some way of this club, because I wanted them to really do well. But because of the pandemic, I didn't really have a lot of money to sponsor a football team. And I just started a new job and I needed the money for myself. So, bummer. But when their season was starting, they asked me to shoot a little video for them, to just offer words of encouragement. And it was a lot of fun to do that. I mean, it was just kind of a, off the wall kind of thing of like, nice. Are you serious? And cool. Yeah, it was this little thing. And I think that really kind of solidified me as part of the family of like, this guy's serious. So he's kind of a weirdo, but he's serious.
Did you just cobble together all of the famous American sports motivational speeches from Rudy and Hoosiers and, remember the Titans, and you're just like,
Miracle on Ice.
Right,
all
exactly.
Any given Sunday?
Yeah, you could. That might be a little vulgar, but.
Yeah. No, I think it was much more timid than a lot of those sports speeches, but it was just sort of like, hey, wish you all the best kind of thing. It was basically like what I imagine a lot of cameos are for celebrities that don't really know who they're talking to.
Yeah.
Because the team had just started, and it was sort of like, we got you. We're backing you. But it's been a lot of fun to follow them, and they've really expanded and improved. They have huge goals to build their own stadium for their team.
Wow.
It's sort of off in the far off future, but they're close to pulling it off. And they have the really cool own custom kits that have really specific design and really specific call outs to like Solomon island's like women's culture and iconography and stuff like that. And like they're truly of where they're from. It's not just like, oh, we wear generic Nike shirts, like
right.
Yeah.
Here's a red shirt and a sponsor on the front.
Right.
And there's our design.
Exactly. They do wear red, which is, it's like the only red team I really support, other than I guess Tipu City's red as well. But, gosh. But yeah, I think they finished pretty low on the table in 2020. But they've been steadily sort of going up every year. They finished second this season.
Thanks to your words of encouragement. I think that's a
Thanks to my words of encouragement. Yeah, it's I like to think I had a part in it. Nice. I don't get to watch it midnight as often as I do anymore because of my 2 children, but definitely check the tables and check the score lines every time I can. And
we'll have to get maybe a link from you we can put in the show notes. People can go to the Facebook page and watch this team
join you
as
watching.
well if they want.
Yeah, well, the season's over now. They've wrapped up the season, but we'll get them. We'll get
the next rounds.
Yeah. So definitely.
So while this may not be a footy specific trip that you also have partaken in, you have also traveled with footy teams and players, I believe. One time, it sounds like, and please elaborate, you wound up flying with the Seychelles national team after the African Cup of Nations match versus, I think, Libya. Is that right?
Yes.
That's a poll. That's interesting.
Haven't done that yet.
Yeah.
So it was my honeymoon. My wife and I we selected Seychelles as a beautiful destination. And because I love football and I often travel during like international breaks anyway, and kind of had this bad luck of not being able to catch club stuff.
So not intentionally. You don't intentionally travel for the international break.
Yeah. Well, not anymore, but at that time it was sort of like, man, I just can't catch a break with this. But I was looking at club football in Seychelles and it wasn't happening. And then I saw that Seychelles was playing Libya in a AFCON qualifier. I actually have the ticket right here.
Oh,
pink.
All right.
See that? It. Boom. That's the ticket.
I love that.
75.
This is why you must subscribe on YouTube.
Right. Yep. And I was like, oh my God, Liz, my wife, Seychelles is playing Libya in AFCON qualifier. We need to adjust our honeymoon scheduling so that we can attend this match.
My man.
I've said it many times on this episode, as you do.
Yeah. Right.
Am I right?
Yeah.
So initially we were sort of just going to like land in Seychelles and then fly off to Praslin, which is the sort of middle island of the 3 big tourist islands in Seychelles, and just sort of have, start our honeymoon there. But we got off the plane and like dropped our luggage in, I guess it was the luggage overseer. I don't know, but it was basically like the space that you're in right now that you're recording in. It was about half the size of that.
Oh, wow.
And we had 2 massive just roller luggage pieces that we like shoved into this closet with this person working at a computer, and then just like wandered off into Victoria to try and find the stadium, and showed up and just really had a great time watching this. It ended up being Seychelles, another historic thing. It ended up being Seychelles' worst loss to date, losing 8-1.
Oh.
I'm cursed. What can I say? But it was a lot of fun to watch, and it was a lot of fun to sort of see who was supporting the team, because there were obviously Seychellois there, but then there were like Germans.
Oh.
Seychelles' huge German tourist population, and there were like German football stickers everywhere. Borussia Dortmund.
Interesting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, just massive amounts of Borussia Dortmund stickers, honestly.
They do a good job of marketing. And
they tag a lot.
Yeah.
Tagging stickers everywhere they go.
Tons of German football stickers from all over the country, just plastered. But flying with the team, that happened after the match. So we sort of got back on track with our scheduling for our beautiful honeymoon, and went to the airport to catch our little, I call it a puddle jumper, but it was, you're flying across a couple miles worth of ocean.
Yeah.
But it sat maybe 10 people, and 8 of the seats in there were national team players that were returning to their homes on Prolin.
Wow.
Okay.
After this 8-1 loss, and us with our massive bags like in our laps, like I mean, it was a tin can. It was such a small airplane.
Wow.
And when we climbed on board the airplane and sort of realized that we were with players, me being kind of the weird football guy was like, "Oh, I'm going to talk to these guys about the match that they just played." And I was like, "You guys are national team, right?" And they were like, "Uh-huh." And I was like, "Oh, wow, we were at the match." And I was just trying to like talk to them about it. But
How did that go?
since they had just lost 8-1, they didn't really feel like talking about
Yeah.
the game.
Making
They were sort of just
history
like,
by losing so badly. I don't know if I want to chat about that.
Yeah, they were sort of like, yeah, that was, thanks for coming.
Thanks.
Like,
Yeah.
great.
Thanks for being here.
But yeah, Seychelles Wild people don't, they're beautiful, beautiful people. I love them. They're amazing.
Yeah. Well, tell us about Faraway Football. We've mentioned it by name a few times here, but explain to the listeners, to the YouTube viewers, what are the origins of this project and what are your hopes and dreams for it?
Well, the origins are kind of, they haven't come to fruition yet. So it started out, I love overland travel. So basically like long road trips, but a little bit more chunky, if you will, a little off-road, long distance.
You have a Land Cruiser? Are you one of those guys?
Basically, yeah. I have a Toyota Prius V, but the dream is to have a Land Cruiser that's sort of kitted out.
Well, you're starting with Toyota, then you get
Toyota,
the 4Runner.
I mean, you got a Prius off-road. It just may not go very far.
Yeah. Well, you can lift it. So the dream was to load up this overland vehicle, ship it to Vladivostok, Russia, and then drive that overland vehicle from Vladivostok to Lisbon, Portugal.
Ooh.
And in between, travel to football clubs in Siberia and Russia, and down through Mongolia and the stands, and the Caucasus and in Iran, and just sort of like basically every football team that you can find along the way. And that is what faraway football has always been in my mind, of like what it's supposed to be, and it just hasn't gotten there yet. And it's just been me sort of like in this holding pattern doing other stuff, which is fun and I love it. But the dream is to really get out there and hit the road, if you will, and just like really rough it.
I think we established earlier that Rob McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds are listening and probably watching this. So maybe they can throw some sponsorship or marketing dollars at it. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like
definitely.
Overland travel is something that I've been doing the last 3 months. And I did a little bit of like a light trip like that on the way from the East Coast to Denver, actually. Stopped at 3 different football matches and coordinated the route based off of when the matches were happening and things like that. And so yours is just taking it to the utmost grandiose level by traveling the largest connecting landmass in the world and trying to just hit up soccer. And I think that's I love that. I got chills thinking about how amazing that could be, and how that would probably take you, I would argue, probably a year at least.
Oh, at least a year. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I mean, you got to time league schedules and stuff, and
and you can't be traveling through Siberia at inopportune seasons, I would say.
It's already got pretty heavy snow, so you'd have to, Mongolia already has snow all over it, so you'd have to sort of time everything.
Do you have a map? Have you gotten to that point where you've
I've made so many maps. I have rerouted and reworked and thought about it, and I've been like, should I add Africa? And all these sort of things of just Africa should be its own trip, and okay, maybe I'll just add let's go through Iraq and let's go through Syria. All these, why not? If it's sort of like when Kathmandu, well, if you're in the area, why not try and travel these places? When else are you going to get the chance? And of course, a lot of these sound insane to people when you're talking about I want to go to these different countries, and obviously because of various geopolitical things that are going on right now.
Yeah, and as an American,
so.
Well, where's the best place that people can find out more about Faraway Football, consume some of the content you're putting out there around that?
Twitter and Instagram are the 2 biggest ones. I'm at Faraway Football on both. You can find me there, FARAWAY Football. And did I spell it right? AWA.
Sounded right to me. We'll leave some stuff in the show notes.
Yeah, I know how to spell. I'm good.
Yeah.
I will say, just to kind of close out, and something you just said that I feel like is very apropos to footy traveling and what faraway football is trying to do, which is, as we mentioned, what the origins were, and you said they haven't really come to fruition, but that's honestly part of the beauty of travel, right? Like, it's not the destination, it's the journey there. And it sounds like you're really doing all of this as this, beautiful blend of travel for football, and with the aspiration of like doing this massive major trip. And it's all about that journey. It's how to get there, whether it be through what, faraway football is building as a, organization, or a belief or a thought, like what it is, but also just like doing it properly, traveling and enjoying the journey and the experience getting to a place. And so that's, as what we're trying to find in other fellow footy travelers. And I feel like you embody it beautifully.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely on a journey. It is a learning experience every day, and I do want to mention, I have to go back to my honeymoon really quickly. And sort of connect it to your trip in November. If you were talking about City,
yeah,
please do.
I am a City supporter. Send your hate in the comments. Boo hiss before the money, whatever.
Yeah.
Manchester City basically paid for my honeymoon as well.
How's that?
Wow.
And how can I get a retroactive payment on my honeymoon?
How do I do that?
Well, so I